A taxi driver broke every company rule to save a pregnant woman in labor. The next morning, she was fired in front of everyone who called her a hero. She had no idea the woman she rushed to the hospital was watching from across the street. And when that woman walked into the taxi depot, every cruel word her supervisor said was about to destroy his career. Before we ride on, we'd like for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to us, and it helps us bring you even more intriguing stories. Now, let's begin. The rain hammered down like fists on metal. Maya Rodriguez gripped the steering wheel of her yellow cab, windshield wipers working overtime just to give her a sliver of vision. It was 11:47 p.m., and she was done. 16 hours on the road, her back screaming, her eyes burning. All she wanted was her bed and 8 hours of silence. Then she saw her, a young woman heavily pregnant, stumbling along the sidewalk near the abandoned warehouse district. No coat, no umbrella, just a thin dress soaked through, one hand clutching her belly, the other reaching out desperately toward the street. Her face was twisted in pain, her mouth open in a silent scream swallowed by the storm. Maya slowed instinctively. She knew this area. No buses ran here after 9. No other cabs came through. And the nearest hospital was St. Catherine's, 8 miles north on the highway. The woman collapsed against a chain-link fence. Maya cursed under her breath and pulled over. She left the meter off, grabbed the emergency blanket from her trunk, and ran through the rain. Up close, the woman was younger than she'd thought, maybe 22. Her eyes were wild with terror, her breathing sharp and shallow. "Help me," she gasped. "Please, my baby, it's coming." Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. Okay, I've got you. Can you walk?" The woman nodded, teeth chattering. Maya wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and helped her into the back seat. The interior light flickered as she slid in, revealing a trail of water and something else. Blood. Maya's hands shook as she started the engine. She knew the rules. No medical emergencies, no liability risks. Call 911 and wait. But she also knew the storm had every ambulance in the city backed up for hours. She'd heard it on the scanner 20 minutes ago. "What's your name?" Maya asked, pulling onto the empty road. "Sophia," the woman gasped. "Sophia Brennan." "I'm Maya. We're going to St. Catherine's. Just breathe, okay? Breathe with me." Sophia whimpered, her knuckles white as she gripped the seat. I can't do this. I'm alone. I don't have anyone." Maya glanced in the rearview mirror. "You're not alone. I'm right here." The highway was a blur of rain and red taillights. Maya pushed the cab harder than she ever had, weaving through traffic, ignoring every speed limit. Her phone buzzed on the dash. Dispatch. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Come on," she muttered, watching the hospital sign glow in the distance. Sophia screamed. Maya's foot slammed on the gas. They skidded into the emergency bay at 12:14 a.m. Maya threw the car into park and ran around to pull Sophia out. 2 nurses burst through the automatic doors with a wheelchair. Sophia was crying, reaching back for Maya's hand. "You saved us," she whispered. "You saved my baby." Maya squeezed her hand. "You're going to be fine. Both of you." They wheeled Sophia inside. Maya stood in the rain, watching the doors close. Her uniform was soaked. Her cab was a mess. Her phone had 17 missed calls. She drove back to the depot in silence. The city lights blurred through the water on her windshield. She didn't regret it. Not for a second. But she knew what was coming. The depot was buzzing with the early morning shift when Maya walked in. The smell of stale coffee and motor oil hung in the air. Drivers clustered around the dispatch board, checking routes, swapping complaints. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Maya clocked in, her uniform still damp from the night before. She'd gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep. Her supervisor, Derek Finch, was already waiting by the lockers, arms crossed, his thin face tight with disapproval. "Rodriguez," he barked. "My office. Now." A few drivers looked up. Maya felt their eyes on her as she followed Derek down the narrow hallway. The walls were covered in outdated safety posters and union notices no one read. His office smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne. He closed the door, didn't offer her a seat. "You want to explain last night?" he said, holding up a printout. "Unauthorized route deviation. Meter off for 43 minutes. GPS shows you went 8 miles outside your zone, and you ignored 17 dispatch calls." Maya kept her voice steady. "There was a pregnant woman in labor. I got her to the hospital." Derek's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Oh, so you're a hero now? You think you can just ignore every company policy because you feel like it?" "She was bleeding. There were no ambulances available. I couldn't just—" "You could have called 911 and waited," Derek snapped. "That's protocol. Instead, you turned your cab into a personal ambulance service, put the company at risk for a lawsuit, and cost us money. Do you know what liability insurance costs when drivers go rogue?" Maya's jaw tightened. She could have died. "That's not your problem," Derek said coldly. "Your problem is following the rules, something you clearly can't do." He opened the door and gestured for her to follow. They walked back into the main depot where more drivers had gathered. The room went quiet as Derek raised his voice, making sure everyone could hear. "Listen up," he announced. "Maya Rodriguez is being terminated, effective immediately. For anyone who thinks they can play hero on company time, let this be a lesson. We run a business, not a charity." Gasps rippled through the room. A few drivers looked away. One older man, Carlos, stepped forward. "Come on, Derek. She saved a woman's life." "She violated protocol," Derek shot back. "Hand over your keys, Rodriguez." Maya's hands trembled as she pulled the cab keys from her pocket. She laid them on the counter, refusing to let him see her break. The room was suffocating. No one else spoke. No one else moved. She walked toward the door, her footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. Behind her, Derek called out, "And don't expect a reference." Outside, the morning sun was just breaking through the clouds. Maya stood on the sidewalk, staring at the yellow cabs lined up like soldiers. She'd driven for this company for 7 years. 7 years of double shifts, of rude passengers, of scraping by on tips. And this was how it ended. Across the street, a black sedan idled at the curb. The tinted window lowered slightly. Inside, a woman with short dark hair and sharp eyes watched Maya walk away, her expression unreadable. Sophia Brennan reached for her phone and made a call. "I found her," she said quietly. "The driver who saved me, and you're not going to believe what just happened." The voice on the other end was calm but firm. "I'm on my way." By noon, the depot was in chaos. Word had spread that someone important was coming. Derek spent the morning barking orders, making sure every cab was spotless, every driver looked presentable. He straightened his tie for the 5th time and checked his reflection in the window. "Mr. Brennan's visiting today," he announced to the room. "The owner. So everyone better be on their best behavior." The drivers exchanged nervous glances. No one had ever met James Brennan. He owned the entire metro taxi fleet, 300 cabs across the city, but he rarely visited the depots. He left operations to regional managers and stayed in his high-rise office downtown. At exactly 12:30, the door opened. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped inside, silver hair perfectly combed, his presence commanding without effort. Beside him walked Sophia, now in clean clothes, a hospital bracelet still on her wrist, and in her arms, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, was a tiny newborn baby. The room went silent. Derek rushed forward, hand extended, smile plastered on. "Mr. Brennan, what an honor, sir. Everything's running smoothly here. Efficient, by the book, just like you'd want." James Brennan didn't take his hand. His eyes swept the room, taking in every detail. "Where's Maya Rodriguez?" Derek blinked. "I'm sorry, sir?" "Maya Rodriguez," James repeated. "The driver who worked last night." Derek's smile faltered. "Oh, her. I had to let her go this morning, sir. She violated multiple company policies, unauthorized route, ignored dispatch, created a massive liability risk. Not the kind of employee you'd want representing your company. James turned to Sophia. She stepped forward, her voice steady but emotional. That driver saved my life, Sophia said. I was alone, in labor, bleeding in the rain. She didn't hesitate. She broke every rule to get me to the hospital. Because of her, my son is here. Because of her, I'm standing here. Derek's face drained of color. James Brennan's expression remained calm, but his voice dropped to ice. You fired her? Yes, sir, for cause. She saved my daughter and grandson, James interrupted, and you fired her for it. The room erupted in whispers. Carlos stepped forward. We tried to tell him, sir, she's the best driver we have. Never complains. Always helps people. Another driver spoke up. She once drove a kid with a broken arm to the ER for free. Didn't even charge the fare. Derek stammered. Sir, I was just enforcing policy. I run a tight ship here. I hired you to manage operations, James said, not to punish compassion. Call her back, now. Derek pulled out his phone with shaking hands. 20 minutes later, Maya walked back through the door, confused and wary. Every driver stood as she entered. Sophia approached her slowly, tears streaming down her face. You saved us, Sophia whispered. Both of us. Maya looked at the baby, then at James Brennan, realization dawning. I just did what anyone would. No, James said firmly. You did what most people wouldn't. You saw someone in need and you acted. That's not common. That's rare. He turned to the room. Effective immediately, Maya Rodriguez is promoted to Director of Driver Services. She'll oversee training, safety protocols, and driver support across all our depots. The room erupted in applause. Maya stood frozen, unable to process what she was hearing. James continued. And we're implementing a new policy, the Maya Protocol. Any driver who assists someone in a life-threatening emergency will be protected, supported, and commended, not punished. Derek stood in the corner, his face ashen. Sophia handed Maya a small card. Thank you, she said, for seeing me as a person when I needed it most. Later that evening, as the depot emptied, James pulled Derek aside. Clean out your office, he said quietly. You're done here. Outside, Maya sat in her old cab one last time, her hands on the wheel. Carlos knocked on the window. You did good, kid, he said. Real good. Maya smiled faintly, looking at the lights of the city ahead. For the first time in years, the road ahead looked clear. The weeks that followed felt like a dream Maya couldn't quite believe. She moved into a small office at the main depot, walls still bare except for a framed photo of Sophia and baby James, named after his grandfather. Every morning, drivers stopped by to share stories, to ask for help, to thank her for finally giving them a voice. But not everyone was happy. Derek Finch had been reassigned to a dispatcher role at the downtown depot, stripped of authority but kept on due to union rules. He showed up on time, did his work, and said nothing. But his eyes followed Maya whenever she visited. Cold, calculating. Then the money started going missing. It began small. A driver reported his cash deposit was $50 short. Then another said her tip envelope had been opened. Maya checked the logs herself, compared receipts, recounted 3 times. The numbers didn't add up. She stayed late one Thursday, long after everyone else had gone home. The office was quiet except for the hum of the vending machine and the distant sound of traffic. She spread the financial reports across her desk, her eyes burning from the screen's glare. Someone was skimming, and they were trying to make it look like her. The next morning, she went straight to James Brennan. I've triple-checked everything, she said, sliding the reports across his mahogany desk. Someone's been taking money from driver deposits and altering the digital logs to cover it up. If this continues, it'll look like I'm responsible. James studied the papers, his jaw tight. Do you have suspects? Only one person who'd want to destroy my credibility, Maya said carefully. But I can't prove it. James picked up his phone. Then we'll get proof. That afternoon, a quiet man in a plain suit arrived at the depot. He introduced himself as Marcus Webb. private investigator. Security cameras were installed in the dispatch office and near the cash deposit safes, hidden, silent, watching. Maya continued her work as usual, training new drivers, reviewing safety protocols, visiting depots across the city. But the anxiety gnawed at her. Every time she checked the accounts, more money was missing. 50 here, 70 there. Always from her batch of processed deposits. Derek kept his distance, but she caught him watching her, a faint smile playing at his lips. 5 days later, the cameras caught him. It was 11:47 p.m. Derek had volunteered for the late shift, claiming he wanted to help out. He waited until the night dispatcher went on break, then moved to Maya's desk. He opened her locked drawer with a key he'd copied weeks earlier, pulled out a stack of bills from the deposit envelopes, and replaced her count slips with altered ones he'd prepared in advance. He even paused to look directly at where Maya's nameplate sat on the desk. "Let's see you talk your way out of this one," he muttered. The microphone picked up every word. The next morning, James called an all-staff meeting at the main depot. Drivers from every shift crowded into the garage bay. The air was thick with confusion and tension. Maya stood near the back, her heart pounding. Marcus Webb set up a laptop on a folding table and hit play. The footage rolled. Derek's hand, the money, the altered slips, his smug whisper. The silence was crushing. Derek stood near the side door, his face going from pale to red to white again. "That's edited," he shouted, his voice cracking. "She set me up. She's been planning this since she got promoted." James Brennan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "The timestamps match our server logs. The bills you took are marked with tracer ink we added 3 days ago, and you just confessed on camera." 2 uniformed officers stepped through the main entrance. The handcuffs clicked before Derek could say another word. "You ruined a good woman's reputation," James said quietly, his voice colder than Maya had ever heard it. "In my company, you tried to destroy the one person who represented everything we should stand for." Derek screamed curses as they led him out, but no one looked up. The garage door closed behind him with a heavy clang. The depot stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Carlos started clapping. Slowly, others joined. The sound built until it filled the entire space. Maya stood still, overwhelmed. James approached her, his expression soft. "You handled that with more grace than most people could," he said. "He tried to break you, and you stayed steady." She smiled faintly. "I learned something that night in the rain. Some storms you drive through, others just pass on their own." That evening, after everyone left, Maya sat in her office staring at the framed photo of Sophia and baby James. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Thank you for everything. We're naming you godmother at the christening next month." Maya set the phone down and looked out the window at the line of yellow cabs, their lights glowing in the dusk. For the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 10 months later, Metro Taxi looked nothing like the company Maya had been fired from. The depot walls were painted bright colors. A new break room had comfortable chairs and free coffee. Driver satisfaction scores had tripled, and the Maya protocol had been adopted by taxi companies in 6 other cities. Inside the main garage, a banner hung across the wall. "Compassion first always." Maya moved through the space easily now, clipboard in hand, greeting drivers by name. She'd implemented peer mentorship programs, mental health support, and a profit-sharing system that gave drivers a real stake in the company's success. James Brennan sat in his usual corner office, watching through the glass. When a local news crew had asked why he'd restructured everything around one driver's principles, he'd said simply, "She reminded us what matters. Profit means nothing if you lose your humanity." That afternoon, he called Maya into the executive conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, sunlight streaming through. On the table sat a leather folder. "I'm getting older," James said. "Sophia's taking over the family foundation, and I need someone who understands what this company should be." He slid the folder toward her. Maya opened it slowly. Inside were legal documents, partnership agreements, shares of ownership. "You're not just director anymore," James said. "You're my partner, 49% equity, equal say in every decision." Maya's hands trembled. "James, I'm just a driver who—" "You're the person who saved my daughter's life when you had every reason not to," he interrupted gently. "You're the person who transformed this company with kindness. You've earned every bit of this." The staff broke into applause as the news spread through the depot. Drivers honked their horns in celebration. Carlos brought out a cake someone had hidden in the break room fridge. Later that evening, as Maya walked to her car, she noticed a figure across the street. Derek Finch stood near a bus stop, wearing a worn jacket, holding a sign advertising a car wash 2 blocks away. His shoulders were hunched, his face weathered. She watched him for a long moment. Then she crossed the street. He froze when he saw her, shame and defiance fighting for control of his expression. Without a word, Maya handed him a sealed envelope. "What's this?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Open it when you're ready," she said quietly. She walked back to her car and drove away. When Derek finally tore it open, he found a voucher for a professional driving course, fully paid, and underneath a handwritten note, "Everyone deserves a second chance. I had mine. This is yours. What you do with it is up to you." Maya. He stood there in the fading light, the note trembling in his hands. Back at the depot, Maya flipped the lights off in her office. Through the window, she could see the city spreading out before her, millions of lights against the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, someone needed help. Someone needed kindness, and tomorrow, her drivers would be ready. She locked the door behind her, smiled softly, and headed home. The storm had passed, and the road ahead was clear. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to your loved ones.